In this prison, even training begins with a blade through someone's chest. The guards study the captives like pieces in an experiment. When the red flag rises, the lesson stops being theoretical. Wool answers with a slit pupil that reveals power he still refuses to expose. A spectral form rises behind him, turning forbidden technique into something real. He exploits the opening and drops the challenger, turning the prison's lesson against itself. The next opponent sees the difference too late, and fear reaches his face. Even victory is graded by masked watchers who never help. Then a masked figure hands Wool 2 swords and tells him he will use them soon. To see how he reached this point, we rewind to the market where a stranger chose him. Wool's day begins in a crowded marketplace, bright enough to hide the danger ahead. The meal is simple: a fish skeleton, scraps, 2 rice balls, and 1 apple. Still, the boy tosses that apple into the air with an easy smile. He catches it, bites down, and enjoys the tiny luxury before carrying his bundle through the crowd. Wool walks among strangers with a bundle on his back, blending into the market's constant movement. Then he stops when something pulls his attention from the food. His expression tightens when he realizes someone stands directly in his path. A tall figure in a veiled, wide-brimmed hat rises over him like a warning. Wool looks up, confused and cautious, unable to understand why this stranger chose him. The stranger offers no clear answer, only a small smile beneath the veil. Before Wool can react, the market vanishes, leaving him suspended in darkness. His eyes snap open, but waking does not bring safety. He blinks through blackness, realizing his body and surroundings feel wrong. Sweat covers his face as pain replaces ordinary thought. The world distorts, turning reality into a broken blur. Wool hits the ground and cries out, fighting an unseen force that seems to tear through him. A tear slips down his cheek as his body admits the pain. Far away, the untouched bowl remains in the marketplace, proof he vanished instantly. The stranger waits inside the dark grid, looking less like a witness than the source of the nightmare. A fragment of memory surfaces: the road, the veiled figure, and the feeling that this meeting began long before the pain. That hidden face seems to speak, but the threat stays just beyond the words Wool can recover. No grudge comes to mind, leaving Wool trapped between confusion and pain. He stares toward the sky as if searching for a reason, but shock gives him nothing solid to hold. His eyes close again, and exhaustion threatens to erase even the memory he was trying to protect. Another tear falls while his body lies still, turning silence into a second kind of suffering. Alone beneath the open sky, Wool looks painfully small against everything he cannot understand. He forces himself upright, swaying as he tries to turn confusion into control. The stranger is waiting again, so even standing feels less like recovery and more like entering another trap. In Wool's eye, the veiled figure appears as a reflection he cannot escape. The next pain is worse. Tears cover his face, blood marks his mouth, and the boy looks close to breaking. His fingers twitch against the rough stone, searching for proof that his body still belongs to him. The reflection in his tear-filled eye bends out of shape, mirroring how completely reality has slipped. He collapses again, limbs slack, and the brief attempt at resistance seems to die with him. His mouth opens for air, but even breathing has become a task instead of a reflex. The only sound he can manage is a broken sniff as he struggles to breathe through the pain. Then his hand reaches for the stone, clawing forward with the first clear sign that survival still matters. A drop strikes a dark surface and sends ripples outward, giving his scattered attention one point to follow. The ripples appear again beside his eye, pulling his focus away from panic and toward the space around him. Pain has not left, but Wool is thinking now, measuring the darkness instead of merely enduring it. His body trembles, while his mind tries to regain command of even one movement. The shaking reaches his foot, proving that the damage is not limited to one place. He grimaces and fights to stay conscious as the unseen pressure keeps dragging him back down. Still, he pushes upward, forcing his injured body to answer a decision it no longer wants to obey. His hand slams against the stone when the effort fails, turning frustration into another burst of pain. A cough tears through him, leaving his face pale and slick with sweat. He drops back down, breathing slowly, because the smallest movement now spends what little strength remains. Then Wool reaches his hands and knees, eyes fixed ahead as determination finally replaces panic. A faint line of light descends over his limp body, suggesting that the darkness has noticed his resistance. He follows that trace to the wall and begins feeling across the stone, searching for any change. His finger strikes one spot. A spark flashes and blood beads from the impact. Wool studies the wounded finger, confused by the wall's reaction but alert enough to remember it. He brings the hand to his mouth, staring into the dark while the discovery rearranges his understanding of the trap. The effort empties him again, and his eyes close before he can test what the spark means. In the vast empty space, his body becomes a small, abandoned shape with no help coming. Then a pair of feet stops beside him, announcing that the mysterious figure has finally arrived. Wool looks up in fear, seeing the watcher who has been waiting at the edge of every answer. The figure stands over him, and the chapter ends with Wool trapped beneath a threat that has finally stepped close enough to speak. Wool wakes inside a dungeon, staring at a spectral version of himself standing over his broken body. His physical form is bloodied on cold stone, barely conscious after a beating that should have ended everything. The spirit smiles and calls that struggle laughable, treating survival as an embarrassing mistake. It paces around him, asking what could possibly be worth clinging to in such a worthless life. Then it crouches close, letting the healthy ghost tower over the body already falling apart. With a calm smile, the spirit promises peace, as if death were the only mercy Wool deserves. The ghost's surprise proves that Wool has still answered somehow, refusing to disappear quietly. It hovers over him again, forcing the living body and spectral self into one unbearable confrontation. Blood and exhaustion fill Wool's face, but his eyes burn with a desperate resolve. The spirit dismisses that effort as wasted strength, convinced the body has nothing left to spend. Wool rejects the idea of peace, because dying in this helpless state would leave him with none. That answer sharpens his focus, and even the spirit seems unsettled by the sudden change. Now the ghost asks whether this stubbornness is really a promise to take revenge. A flicker of doubt enters its eye when Wool refuses to give the expected answer to death. He forces a scream through the agony, fighting the darkness with nothing except sheer will. The spirit sits back and watches, almost satisfied to see a struggle it did not expect. Wool's eyes flutter, and a broken body begins pulling itself back toward life. He lies perfectly still, concentrating on forcing his soul to remain inside the body. Then the pain surges through him, making his whole body tremble violently. Sweat covers his face while gritted teeth turn endurance into his only remaining weapon. He crawls across the dungeon floor and feels along the cold wall for anything useful. His fingers find a small patch of moss, insignificant to anyone else, but suddenly worth everything. Wool brings the dark growth to his mouth, willing to eat anything that can keep him alive. The moss burns through him as he kneels and clutches his chest, but he forces it down. He hunches over, shaking while survival demands that he endure one more wave of pain. His teeth grind together as every breath becomes proof that he has not lost yet. Wool reaches for the wall again, clawing at the stone for another scrap of moss. He keeps eating with frantic focus, driven by hunger stronger than disgust or fear. At last, his feet steady beneath him, and standing becomes the first victory his body can claim. He walks into the dark corridor with one hand trailing along the stone, searching for a way forward. The moss stains his lips while his gaunt face stays alert, as if hunger has sharpened him. The corridor opens into a huge grid-patterned space where Wool stands completely alone. He crosses the grid carefully, posture tense and gaze fixed on whatever waits ahead. Then he stops at a sudden realization, because the silence has revealed something dangerous nearby. A glowing rectangular opening appears in the stone, spilling light into the prison corridor. Wool shields his eyes, wincing as the brightness attacks senses trained only for darkness. He approaches the opening anyway, balancing curiosity against the fear of whatever waits beyond it. His hand reaches through the light and finds the bowl he has been desperate enough to imagine. Wool looks up with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by the sight of actual food. He sniffs the air, following the scent as if it were a rope pulling him out of the abyss. His eyes widen over the bowl, and hunger nearly erases the caution that kept him alive. He kneels before the meal, staring at its simplicity like it is a treasure. For 1 second he closes his eyes and lets the smell prove that relief can still exist. Wool grips the bowl with both hands, finally ready to trust the chance placed in front of him. The relief does not last, because shadowy figures now surround him and watch from the dark. He looks up in alarm, realizing the food was never the only thing waiting beyond the light. The silent figures form a circle, their glowing eyes fixed on Wool while he remains on the floor. He sits with his back exposed, isolated again beneath the attention of unseen witnesses. Wool faces forward with a defiant stare, choosing to meet the next danger instead of hiding. Even then, he sniffs the food cautiously, because desperation has not erased every survival instinct. He lifts the bowl quickly, hunger finally overpowering the last of his hesitation. The first bite demands his full attention, tasting like the reward for refusing to die. He keeps eating steadily, turning a small meal into the strength needed for whatever comes next. The bowl suddenly drops against the stone, cutting the fragile relief short. Wool licks the last taste from his finger, satisfied for one breath but still trapped in the dungeon. Wool trains inside the stone cell, turning isolation into a routine that never ends. He pants through each repetition, forcing exhausted muscles onward once more. A guard slides another bowl of dark food through the barred opening. Silence drives Wool to slam his fist hard against the wall. Every meal reminds him the silent captors treat him like an object. He continues until his arms shake and his remaining strength disappears. Eventually he collapses, gasping where he fell. On the floor, Wool watches for any possible way out. One eye holds stubborn resolve his exhausted body cannot hide. He lies still, saving the cell's remaining strength for later. When Wool sits up, the untouched bowl waits beside him like a problem. Centipedes crawl across the floor, adding another living threat. 2 red eyes appear, proving the cell holds something larger than insects. A white snake slides silently into view. It strikes before Wool can prepare, wrapping tightly around his hand. Pain flashes as the snake constricts. Wool studies the creature because panic offers no useful answer. The snake flicks its tongue, measuring the helpless prey before it. Its fangs sink into Wool's hand again without hesitation. Venom hits fast, overwhelming every careful thought. He collapses, clutching the bitten hand as the poison spreads. Wool fights the venom, but his body shakes beyond control. He pants, forcing his ragged breathing back into a steady rhythm. The hand discolors, exposing the venom's relentless progress beneath the skin. He curls around it as the poison reaches deeper. Blood fills his eye, joining the physical pain with terror. The snake looms above him, ready to worsen the ordeal even further. Wool curls inward, too drained for any visible fear. His hand searches blindly until his fingers find a stone. He smashes the food bowl, turning his only meal into a tool. Through grime and sweat, Wool concentrates on a desperate plan. He grips the broken bowl with both hands for another attempt. His bloodshot eyes narrow as a broken thought finally forms. The effort overwhelms him, and he collapses face down again. The white snake waits ahead, red eyes keeping the threat alive. Wool looks up again, agony hardening into cold attention. He sits across from the snake, replacing blind panic with confrontation. Its tongue flicks slowly as it studies his resistance. Wool analyzes the creature, instead of simply fearing it. He reaches toward the snake, inviting another bite. Its jaws open over his hand. He recoils slightly but continues the test. Something brightens in his eye as venom changes his focus. The snake bites the same hand again. Its jaws lock while Wool's arm trembles. Dark patterns spread up his arm with the venom. The marks tighten until the injury looks alive. Wool fights to stay conscious. He drops to one knee, clutching the arm. Sweat runs down his face as breathing becomes endurance. The snake waits silently for the venom to finish. Its red eye makes the creature seem strangely intelligent. Moths gather, carrying a dangerous rhythm. The snake moves through them with eerie grace. Their wings flutter around the confrontation. Wool looks back with a faint red glow burning in his eyes. A dark vibration rolls across the stone. He looks up sharply, sensing pressure moving through the room. His feet plant, preparing his weakened body. Wool rises, no longer accepting the role of helpless victim. He faces the heavy stone door directly ahead. The narrow corridor stretches ahead, cold and oppressive. His sandals carry him forward as footsteps echo. His profile stays serious and newly alert. At the doorway, Wool rests a hand on the frame. His red iris holds an unfamiliar new intensity. The pupil narrows into a sharp vertical line. The smell of rotting flesh makes Wool look down at a body. Long hair hides the fallen figure's face. Wool pauses, thinking through the discovery. He continues, footsteps echoing down the corridor. Wool scans upward for clues. A heavy door waits ahead. He pushes against the stone with both arms. The door opens onto deeper darkness. Wool widens the opening enough to enter. He stands silhouetted in the doorway. The darkness is not empty. Someone unexpected waits inside. Shinnok stands alone in the stone corridor, red eyes calm as the prison hides its secrets. A man and woman sit nearby in darkness, alert to the same unseen danger. Shinnok studies them carefully, measuring the strangers before making his next move. A worn sandal steps into the corridor, tightening the already fragile silence. The pair react sharply, proving someone else has entered the facility. Shinnok looks upward, calm enough to make the others more nervous immediately. At a dark doorway, he sees a figure huddled beyond the threshold. The woman looks at Shinnok, unsure whether he is another threat. Her anxious face makes the encounter feel like negotiation, not a rescue. Shinnok considers the room and its occupants before rushing. He explains that he was trapped nearby, offering the strangers the first piece of his story. The pair listen, shifting toward cautious curiosity. The woman gestures with a question, demanding more explanation. Shinnok holds their gaze, ready to answer or lead them onward. All three face one another without violence, and tension loosens. Shinnok turns away, signaling that answers lie deeper inside. His profile stays firm as he focuses on the path. A heavy metal door waits at the corridor's end. Shinnok tells them to follow, taking responsibility for the next step. The pair hesitate, weighing trust against staying behind. The woman gestures again, worried where his path leads. Even so, they move deeper with Shinnok ahead. The heavy door opens, drawing everyone's attention. A group reacts in shock, including a silver-haired woman who clearly expected no visitors. Shinnok watches their reaction without showing his own surprise. Someone lies on the floor, forcing Shinnok to assess the room. Concern sharpens his face as he studies the injured person. Bowls of meager food expose the prisoner's harsh and deliberate treatment. Shinnok's eyes glow faintly as he examines everything. The group watches, making him the uneasy center of attention. A man identifies himself as Shinnok while Lee Min enters as an instruction. The group follows him through a dark cave tunnel. Another metal door blocks the route, leaving everyone waiting. Shinnok touches the barrier, testing its response. He braces for something far stronger than a lock. A blinding flash forces them to cover their eyes. The light strains Shinnok's face, red eyes exposed. He shields himself as fiery brightness fills the cave. The doors open onto a torchlit courtyard. Shinnok looks back at those who followed him. A high view reveals the hidden courtyard inside the cave. The group walks toward buildings gathered around it. Shinnok opens another wooden door, now more cautious. He gestures for someone behind him to stop. A tied wooden structure fills the space, revealing more captives. Shinnok surveys the room for threats and information. His calm profile keeps every hidden detail in focus. Shinnok turns toward a silver-haired woman and her gentle smile. Her bright eyes remain calm inside the oppressive place. Shinnok looks taken aback by the unexpected softness. She reaches out and touches his face. Her hand remains while Shinnok's reptilian pupil catches the light. A white snake appears behind him, turning intimacy into warning. She keeps her hand raised, watching his reaction. Shinnok stays guarded, explaining only what the evidence allows. They face one another in the courtyard beneath the group's eyes. The silver-haired woman continues with a serene profile. Shinnok listens tensely, sweat betraying hidden pressure. Her widening smile makes the exchange harder to read. Shinnok answers seriously instead of matching her cheer. They hold a standoff while everyone waits. The conversation mixes caution with a need for answers. A brown-haired woman tilts her head, processing the words. Her expression brightens without resolving the danger. Shinnok and the silver-haired woman exchange guarded looks. The brown-haired woman gestures toward the next step. Shinnok looks down, carrying the facility's unanswered threats. The brown-haired woman reacts, clarifying a point. Shinnok speaks intensely, shaping the group's route. The brown-haired woman waits for his response. Her expression softens into a small smile. The silver-haired woman rests her chin on her hand. The brown-haired woman touches her shoulder, showing camaraderie. Shinnok's face hardens as the conversation gives him direction. He walks into darkness, while the women watch the path. The prison camp spreads across a desolate yard, dividing captives into uneasy groups. A ponytailed man and dark-haired woman stand apart, composed and important. The ponytailed man surveys the camp before the next problem arrives. A red-haired man shouts, immediately becoming the camp's volatile force. A silver-haired man watches calmly, mocking the tension. Wool's dirt-streaked face stays focused apart from the exhausted crowd. Two captives look toward Wool, noticing how completely he stands apart. He studies the hierarchy before choosing where to move. Straw sandals cross cracked ground, showing the camp's harshness. Wool tests the dark rock wall for weaknesses. He faces two captives as confrontation begins forming. His hand traces the rough surface for information. Wool looks upward when something beyond the wall captures him. A crescent moon hangs above floating debris and disturbance. He watches calmly, treating the event as confirmation. A glowing circle appears overhead, drawing every captive's attention. A large food basket becomes the camp's center. Captives crowd around it, shouting for everyone to eat. One hand dives in with scarcity's practiced speed. More hands follow, turning distribution into struggle. Angry faces rise as the scramble creates resentment. The dark-haired woman watches calmly, untouched by hunger's chaos. The red-haired man stays stern while his companion grows nervous. The pony-tailed man and another captive wait for a chance. The silver-haired man watches as if the food is beneath him. The red-haired and silver-haired men reveal the camp's current social dominance clearly. The pony-tailed man and dark-haired woman look upward, focused. Wool watches the group gather, remaining at the edge. A realization crosses his face. The hunger becomes information. He reaches toward the basket while the red-haired man watches. A hand snaps around his wrist, stopping Wool from taking anything. Wool studies the grip instead of reacting. The red-haired man's annoyed face makes it personal. He holds Wool's wrist over the food, claiming control. Wool's eye narrows into a reptilian slit. The stone room fills with witnesses as the man looms. Wool moves suddenly, turning restraint into an opening. His strike lands, and blood makes the power shift clear. Captives stare because nobody expected the quiet outsider to answer. Wool pins the red-haired man and strikes again. He demands the man repeat his words. Wool's hand closes around the man's throat. He repeats the demand until struggle becomes panic. Wool's face stays cold, showing controlled violence. His grip presses harder, extending the humiliation. The captives watch in horror as Wool continues. A huge snake looms behind him, symbolizing danger. Footsteps approach, interrupting the fight. Wool looks up while holding the man. A serious woman appears. She remains calm, less disturbed than the captives. She speaks softly, and Wool answers intensely. Two men stand behind her, making the intervention organized. Wool stands and releases the red-haired man dismissively. The defeated man clutches his face on the floor. His hands cover the damage, leaving him humiliated. Wool looks away once the danger ends. The red-haired man remains seated, recovering from defeat. Three children keep eating, disconnected from the violence. Wool sits on a ledge above the courtyard, watching from distance. He eats quietly, contrasting food with the brutality that secured it. In darkness, exhaustion pulls him into restless recovery. Wool studies a small white object against the rock. The courtyard remains controlled, captives scattered under watch. A brown-haired woman speaks beside Wool as he watches the camp. His slit pupils stay alert, proving the fight changed him. Her smile softens the conversation without making it safe. Wool listens neutrally, tracking every detail. The reptilian pupils cannot be dismissed as exhaustion. The woman studies him with a gentle expression. She talks while Wool weighs her words. They stand together as her waiting look presses for an answer. Wool studies dark arm marks while a white snake rises behind him. The marks spread, making the change impossible to ignore. The woman leans closer, mixing curiosity with concern. They sit together, briefly lowering the camp's pressure. Wool looks up as the mood suddenly changes. Two men stare downward in shock. A dark shape rises from a woven basket. The woman worries while Wool fixes on the threat. His face settles into calm resolve. A gentle smile opens the memory, making the bloodshed brutal. The same character lies broken in blood, apparently dead. People gather, crying as grief tears through camp. The scene turns grayscale, freezing the morning. A long-haired observer watches from a rocky height. The bloodied face confirms the wound was unsurvivable. Reptilian eyes stay calm, knowing more than the mourners. A man and woman stand over the covered mound. The man's anger boils while the woman stays controlled. Her calm lips continue answering his frustration. His anger shifts to surprise as she explains. A faint light enters her eyes, revealing a secret. The observer sits alone, weighing the next move. Their face hardens instead of joining the grief. Another body lies among the rocks. The rule becomes clear. Someone dies every night. Distorted images pile bodies into a repeating nightmare. A long-haired figure with red eyes looks dangerous. A hand searches mossy stone for an advantage. The observer studies a dark object, confirming a theory. They face the wall, searching for a passage. A corridor opens, promising movement without safety. The observer enters, focused on what waits beyond. Several pairs of feet follow into danger. The observer walks thoughtfully, carrying the deaths forward. Reflected light catches one eye, turning search into investigation. The observer speaks calmly, keeping everyone moving. 4 people cross while a torch marks the route. The torchbearers look concerned and exposed. A bandaged man appears tense, covered eyes hiding danger. His grin makes the corridor feel trapped. The bandaged man and companion react aggressively. One member stumbles as the confrontation begins. The group scatters while a pale tail enters beside the torch. A victim lies on stone, already losing the fight. The bandaged man reaches toward the torch, controlling the only light. He lunges with a fist while another member recoils behind a club. His roar turns the ambush into open violence. The group is overwhelmed as he looms above them. A shadowy figure rises behind one victim, glowing eyes revealing another threat. The target looks back, realizing danger is no longer ahead. The bandaged man looks away, satisfied by the panic. A red-eyed character grabs and pins the victim. The attacker holds them coldly, without hesitation. The bandaged man grins through sweat, enjoying chaos. The red-eyed character raises a hand over the pinned victim. Predatory eyes focus on the trapped target. The victim grips their throat as choking begins. The red-eyed face stays calm, making violence deliberate. The bandaged man watches, waiting to see who controls the corridor. The red-eyed character looks toward him, threatening without words. The bandaged man grits his teeth and prepares another attack. Faint red eyes shift the balance again. The bandaged man launches forward, choosing violence. He lunges across the corridor into a direct fight. They collide in a blur around the frightened group. The bandaged man keeps shouting, replacing fear with rage. His teeth accompany another heavy strike. A bloodshot eye reveals the effort behind his attack. He lands low, ready for the answer. The bandaged man looks around, unsure where the opponent went. The red-eyed character appears behind him, making surprise terrifying. The bandaged man lunges while the red-eyed figure watches. Fear and sweat replace the man's confidence. The red-eyed character remains stoic as panic spreads. Slow footsteps approach as the bandaged man backs against stone. Each step makes the approaching figure more dangerous. A bead of sweat slips as the distance closes. Red pupils constrict with predatory focus. The bandaged man tries to hold his ground. He raises both hands defensively, caught between rage and pleading. The red-eyed character stares without yielding control. The shouting now sounds like panic. The red eyes remain steady and impossible to intimidate. A firm footstep signals the final move. The bandaged man screams, completely cornered. The red-eyed character leaves no retreat. A serious warning ends the argument. The bandaged man screams again, overwhelmed by his own threat. The red-eyed character lunges and grips his throat. Dark residue spreads from the neck as the grip drains him. The red-eyed figure lifts him from the floor. Shadowy energy tightens the unnatural chokehold. The attacker holds him suspended as his limbs weaken. The bandaged man claws at the arm, but it will not loosen. Tears and sweat run down his face as he gasps. His arm falls limp. The fight leaves him. He collapses, gasping while the red-eyed victor stands over him. The victor looks down, considering the unconscious enemy. Then he walks away, leaving the man motionless. The red-eyed face remains cold and predatory. The bandaged man lies helpless as dark energy fades. A foot steps toward the red-haired man lying unconscious on the stone floor. Three disciples stare in shock, still processing how completely the fight changed their world. Pyo-wol looks away coldly, refusing to celebrate the defeat he caused. A young woman thinks nearby while Wol stands behind her, quiet and observant. He crosses his arms and studies the compound, already considering his next move. A light-haired youth lies on the floor with his hands behind his head, strangely relaxed. Others gather around him in a game while he watches from the ground without concern. His neutral face suggests he is waiting for information rather than enjoying the game. Several people look down into a pit, their fear revealing that something has gone wrong below. The light-haired youth looks down as well, finally taking the disturbing news seriously. Wol walks away while the camp whispers that he killed powerful Yun Iljung and cannot be touched now. The light-haired youth sits up and speaks, turning the rumor into an order or warning. Three disciples sit together anxiously, waiting for someone to tell them what happens next. A foot moves quickly across the floor, announcing that the next interruption has arrived. A newcomer approaches the light-haired youth, with a challenge already written across the distance. Breathing hard, the newcomer gestures urgently, as if pleading for a response. He keeps speaking while the light-haired youth listens with unnerving calm. The youth's narrowed eyes show annoyance as he processes the demand. The newcomer looks shocked by the answer, clearly receiving news he did not want. The light-haired youth stands, and two disciples react with sudden excitement and admiration. He lowers his gaze and closes his eyes, weighing the consequences before acting. Cracks spread across the ceiling, showing how badly the training compound is already deteriorating. Two disciples examine a small round object, treating it like evidence in a larger problem. The light-haired youth watches from a distance, revealing nothing while they handle it. One disciple holds the object in both hands, making its importance impossible to miss. Shadowy figures surround the light-haired youth, their red eyes and smiles turning the room hostile. He looks startled for the first time as the threat appears without warning. Attackers rush him from every direction, forcing the calm youth into a defensive stance. The disciples scream in horror while one keeps the small object clutched tightly. Another disciple runs, and the room dissolves into panic instead of organized resistance. The light-haired youth stands alone, sweating while he tries to understand the hostile shift. He looks toward a red-lit corridor where the others flee from an unseen danger. Two disciples stumble through the chaos, looking back while the threat follows. A hand covers a mouth, suppressing a scream as the group tries to stay silent. The disciples scramble down the narrow corridor, moving too frantically to keep formation. The youth shouts in anger, reacting to the violence he can no longer control. A wooden staff strikes someone, turning the panic into direct physical conflict. The victim's shocked face shows how quickly the compound has become a battlefield. Several disciples struggle together, while wooden staves rise and fall around the fallen. The youth's eye widens with sudden realization as he sees the violence spreading. He shouts again, trying to regain control of people who are already attacking each other. Disciples surround him with staves, making their former teacher or leader look outnumbered. Two of them approach, turning the standoff into a test of whether he will fight back. A long-haired woman watches from behind, her unreadable face hiding which side she supports. A man and woman walk toward the conflict, apparently drawn by the rising noise. The youth grinds his teeth, anger tightening as the confrontation refuses to stop. The observing woman remains calm, an unsettling contrast to the panic around her. The youth's eyes narrow, and his focus sharpens before the next movement. He looks down in silence, waiting for the right moment instead of wasting energy. The woman watches from the side, detached enough to study the youth rather than help him. He shouts again as the pressure reaches its breaking point. The woman's steady gaze does not change while the courtyard erupts around her. She turns toward another disturbance, realizing the conflict is spreading beyond one group. The youth is swallowed by the brawl, facing several opponents at once. He strikes one attacker and turns immediately toward the next, moving with decisive speed. The woman looks up with mild surprise as the youth's combat ability finally becomes obvious. She sees him perched on a roof, already above the chaos he created. A defeated disciple sits below, confused and hurt after losing the exchange. The youth crouches on the rooftop and looks down, keeping the compound within reach. A light-haired person throws an object across the night, adding another threat to the chase. Traditional rooftops stretch under the moon, making the training compound feel isolated from the world. Dark energy swirls around the youth's face as his internal pressure finally becomes visible. The main hall rises ahead, stark and imposing at the center of the compound. The disciples stand together in the courtyard, their uniform training suppressing individual identity. Wool grips his sword with cold resolve, realizing the compound is raising them to become assassins. The captives lie trapped in a cavernous dungeon while a grinning captor looms over them. His close-up smile is predatory, reminding everyone who controls the space beneath him. A dreamlike woman surrounded by flowers contrasts with the captives laughing below, as if happiness belongs elsewhere. A white-haired woman sits apart while a captive laughs hysterically, making the dungeon feel psychologically broken. Her pale face stays stoic, detached from the misery surrounding her, yet her hands tremble in her lap, exposing the fear behind that controlled expression. She watches the others eat and realizes they have all gotten used to murder. The thought tears through her composure, and she clutches herself while weeping. Her tears continue in close-up, showing how little protection remains beneath the dungeon's rules. Mocking laughter echoes through the darkness, turning the silence into another threat. The captives look up together, expecting either an arrival or the next punishment. A dark-haired woman argues with the group, her anger matching the pressure inside the dungeon. She speaks like a leader, trying to force the captives to face what is happening. Her eyes search the shadows nervously, because the danger may already be listening. Then she locks onto a young man in the distance, and he looks up in alarm. His close-up shows worry as her attention pulls him into the confrontation. He shouts back, turning the exchange into a tense standoff instead of surrender. The dark-haired woman's expression hardens, making it clear she will not accept his defiance easily. Masked figures in red hoods suddenly descend from above, transforming argument into invasion. They land among the captives, and panic spreads before anyone can organize a defense. The prisoners stare in terror as the masked attackers begin their assault. The masked figures crash into the captives, and the dungeon erupts into desperate combat. A masked attacker raises a weapon with the calm focus of someone trained only to kill. One captive is struck down immediately, proving the attack is meant to destroy rather than intimidate. The dark-haired woman is thrown back, her shock showing that even she cannot control this assault. Several captives lie injured on the floor, while blood and panic erase the earlier argument. The young man remains on the ground with red eyes glowing, struggling against something inside him. His slit pupil glows brighter, revealing a hidden power he still refuses to expose. Three masked figures stand over a kneeling red-hooded figure, establishing a new hierarchy of captors. Their identical masks and robes make them look less like people than instruments of punishment. The young man grimaces as the red pressure in his eyes fights against his control. A gloved hand rises beside the red hoods, signaling an order that everyone obeys. The masked figures stand over defeated captives, efficient and emotionless after the violence. One mask fills the darkness, its blank surface more disturbing than a visible expression. A captive looks up in terror as the masked figure approaches without slowing. The attacker strikes, and the captive disappears beneath a stark red burst of violence. Blood covers another face, while glowing eyes reflect the trauma of everyone still watching. The remaining characters react with shock and fear as the executions continue. A woman covers her mouth, unable to intervene while the horror unfolds in front of her. A masked figure stands silently over the scene, clearly high enough to watch without consequence. The young man struggles on the ground, still fighting the red-eyed pressure inside himself. A single candle burns after the violence, making the quiet feel heavier than the screams. Through a lattice window, teacups wait in a domestic room, far removed from the dungeon. A masked face appears distorted in a bowl, suggesting the violence has a hidden observer. Black tendrils rise from a pot, turning a quiet room into the source of another danger. Centipedes, spiders, and scorpions crowd inside the pot, gathered as ingredients for poison. A monstrous silhouette looms above them while the text promises the most potent poison. Shadowy, red-eyed figures appear with bared teeth, like manifestations of the curse being prepared. The masked figure stands before them as the source is named, Curse Poison. Two masked figures face each other in a formal, secretive conversation. They lean close, exchanging information while keeping their identities hidden. A dark-haired woman stands back-to-back with one of them, connecting the human camp to the masked operation. The teapot and cups return, making the clandestine discussion look almost ordinary. Two figures remain back-to-back, carrying the weight of a shared secret. A smaller character stands before a larger shadow, making the power imbalance unmistakable. One masked figure listens in profile, waiting for the response that will determine the next step. Another remains composed, suggesting the negotiation is proceeding exactly as intended. A character stands behind the mask, subtle enough to look protective or controlled. The formal exchange continues near a doorway, quiet and precise rather than emotional. A hand reaches forward, ready to present or receive something important. A gloved hand lifts an ornate golden scroll case, turning the conversation into an offer. The masked figure presents it calmly, maintaining the authority of someone offering a mission. The contract reveals its price: 7 years of service for 500,000 gold yang. Masked overseer watches from above, measuring every captive below. One raised finger issues the order. Terror moves immediately through the compound. A red flag rises, signaling that the next execution has begun. Captives run toward the building, unknowingly entering the attacker's path. Red-clad assailants crash into them, leaving no safe direction. A young captive hides inside the wall as boots stop outside. She can only endure. Dying now means never seeing the outside world. On the roof, a frightened woman grips the flag while Wool watches. Fear overwhelms her face, making the signal feel heavier than a weapon. She looks down, searching for action before the guards close in. Wool's sharpened eyes hint the prison has cultivated more than obedience. Masked guards patrol the platforms, treating captives like pieces in an experiment. Her fear hardens into anger. Waiting quietly now looks like surrender. Wool studies a book, choosing preparation while panic spreads around him. She approaches, demanding attention from the one person still acting calmly. Instead, she yawns, making the nightmare feel briefly, almost absurdly ordinary. She stretches beside him while Wool keeps reading, their tension becoming a standoff. His calm profile suggests the book matters more than the prison's performance. A masked figure appears, giving their quiet corner a dangerous new center. He opens the technique and meditates, treating forbidden knowledge as a tool. Energy coils around him, answering the technique before his body understands it. A spectral form rises, turning the lesson from theory into real power. Lightning crackles through his meditation as internal energy rebuilds his body. Training ends when a fight erupts, and Wool meets violence without hesitation. A blade flashes free, reducing the confrontation to one question: who moves first? His focused eye answers before the attacker can finish the strike. Wool exploits the opening and drops him, turning the prison's lesson against itself. The defeated opponent remains below, while Wool waits for the next threat. Another challenger charges in, grinning as if death is his only language. He lunges with a raised blade, trading caution for raw aggression. Wool's red-lit eyes narrow, making his stillness more threatening than the grin. A masked observer watches behind them, turning the duel into a hidden test. The challenger spins his blade, hoping speed can conceal his weakness. He taunts Wool with being devoured, mistaking savagery for advantage. The opponent circles quickly, but Wool reads the rhythm beneath the display. Another slash cuts air, and the attacker smiles at his near miss. He parries precisely. Sparks prove the new technique changed his timing. The challenger attacks again, but Wool refuses to offer an opening. The attacker leaps, turning his next strike into a killing blow. Wool stands inside glowing blades, calm enough to let danger reveal itself. From above, the floating weapons surround him like a frozen storm. His expression hardens. He has decided to end this on his terms. Wool vanishes into motion, leaving energy trails behind his body. The fighters collide midair, flashing through the prison's oppressive darkness. Their blades lock with a shockwave, but Wool keeps control. The challenger presses relentlessly, yet every strike finds Wool waiting. His face twists with desperation, because losing only makes him reckless. Wool's face disappears into shadow, hiding the next movement. He strikes the ground, releasing a precise burst of energy. A blade embeds nearby, snapping the duel into another violent exchange. The masked figure speaks, watching Wool as if answering a private question. Energy gathers into a vortex, dragging the air inward. The challenger fights the current, while the prison seems to swallow him. Wool crouches beside the vortex, ready to deliver the final blow. Fear reaches the opponent's face. The difference in ability is undeniable. He lunges once more, choosing desperation over admitting defeat. His charge blurs forward, but Wool meets it with closed patience. The motion stops, the threat is neutralized, and Wool does not celebrate. In the rocky darkness, Wool holds a small blade and listens. He drives it into the ground, turning the impact into a warning. A marked mask appears in shadow, proving another hidden presence survived. Another opponent charges, restarting the violence before Wool can leave. Wool's expression stays cold, treating this attack as a continuation. The attacker reaches him, but Wool's kick turns confidence into shock. The opponent reels backward, stunned by the effortless counter. He watches without emotion, already noticing the masked figures directing events. Two masked figures study the aftermath beside the traditional building. One speaks, and his posture suggests authority over more than this assault. Their measured conversation reveals violence managed like organized administration. A white-robed figure emerges, adding a mystery neither speaker explains. Steel flashes as someone tests the newcomer before choosing a side. The masked figures keep watching, waiting to see who truly controls events. From above, they observe the chaos detached from the bodies below. One opponent struggles beneath them, already beyond controlling the fight. Wool catches his arm before the next strike can begin. One blow follows, and the opponent's resistance collapses. His scream carries the cost of every lesson forced into Wool's body. Wool stands over him, unreadable, while the watchers calculate. They study the aftermath instead of helping, confirming this was also an examination. Wool faces forward, stronger, but still surrounded by people hiding the prison's purpose. Wool stands over a kneeling figure, with the ruined ground matching the violence that brought them here. His red eyes stay fixed, focused on whatever threat remains below him. Then Wool notices a black-cloaked figure, and his victory immediately feels less secure. Two masked figures face him together, making the encounter look organized rather than accidental. A bead of sweat betrays the pressure. Wool refuses to show openly. One masked figure points a sword straight at him, turning the warning into a sentence. The blade passes close to Wool's neck, leaving survival balanced on one breath. Energy seems to vibrate around the sword, making the masked fighter's threat impossible to dismiss. The weapon stays raised while Wool studies the attacker instead of backing away. Behind him, someone on the ground gasps for air, adding urgency to an already impossible choice. Wool looks concerned, because the fallen person may not survive another delay. The blank mask offers no emotion, only the certainty that compassion will not decide this. A sword draws free, and the movement announces that negotiation has reached its limit. More masked figures close around Wool, shrinking the space until every escape becomes a gamble. He looks back, checking the circle while calculating which danger matters first. The nearest mask turns in profile, calm enough to make the threat feel practiced. Wool stands alone inside the ring, surrounded but refusing to look defeated. He finally shouts, letting anger answer the pressure that patience could no longer contain. Afterward, he wipes his face, exhausted by the attention and the fight it keeps promising. The scene opens onto a desolate ruin, where the next danger is waiting beyond the standoff. A lone torch burns in the darkness, giving the abandoned place one fragile point of warmth. A red-cloaked figure appears, watching the ruins with the confidence of someone who belongs there. The figure walks forward without hurry, making the empty buildings feel like a prepared battlefield. A sword sweeps through the darkness, and the quiet collapses into sudden violence. The cloaked fighter strikes, knocking someone backward before the victim can recover. Glowing eyes stare through the mask, revealing power without revealing identity. A witness watches in shock, realizing the attacker is far beyond an ordinary fighter. The cloaked figure walks away, leaving the witness with questions and the fallen with consequences. Seen from behind, the figure remains imposing even while disappearing into the ruins. Another strike lands, proving the violence is deliberate rather than a single defensive reaction. Two men now face the red cloak, and the ruined ground becomes their only meeting place. The figure moves down a narrow alley, masked eyes glowing between walls of debris. Green light washes over the rubble, making the destruction feel poisoned and strangely alive. The wider ruin reveals how much damage surrounds the silent figure. The cloaked fighter addresses someone unseen, turning the destruction into a formal confrontation. Those glowing eyes remain fixed forward, carrying the authority of someone who expects obedience. A staff or weapon slams into the ground, kicking up dust and punctuating the command. The figure stands over what has fallen, then reacts as though a new realization has arrived. A brief look stops. The cloaked fighter has sensed another presence in the ruins. A young man with long dark hair appears, calm enough to contrast with everything around him. His sharp, red-tinted eyes carry purpose rather than panic as he studies the scene. He bows to the cloaked figure, acknowledging a hierarchy that the ruined battlefield never explains. The masked presence stands behind him, while the young man faces forward without losing focus. Dust swirls around the glowing mask, hinting that the encounter is about to change direction. The story cuts to three people sharing skewers, replacing immediate danger with a suspiciously relaxed meal. One man grins wildly over the food, bringing chaotic energy into the quieter group. The young man listens seriously, his composure refusing to match the wild companion's mood. The wild man offers him a bite, testing whether food can break through that disciplined silence. The young man closes his eyes, remaining calm while the grin behind him refuses to fade. His mouth moves as he speaks, and the meal suddenly feels like a briefing instead of a break. He looks forward with resolve while the wild man watches from behind, alert beneath the humor. A skewer passes over the fire, grounding the conversation in an ordinary act surrounded by extraordinary danger. A woman sits quietly with her food, observing both men without joining their performance. The young man's final look is determined, suggesting the next move has already been chosen. A corridor leads to a closed door, hiding the next decision. A graying man waits at a table, listening for news. A white mask rests nearby, ready to hide its wearer. An older, scarred man studies it, weighing its meaning. He speaks in profile, and the room treats his words as orders. His sharp eye makes seriousness unmistakable. Hesitation is forbidden here. The double doors open, flooding the room with light. Two masked enforcers enter in matching robes, perfectly disciplined. They stand before the elder, waiting to report. The elder gestures, directing them with calm authority. The two figures exchange a knowing glance, hiding a second message. A gloved hand adjusts the mask, erasing the wearer's identity. The movement is precise, turning secrecy into part of the uniform. The two men appear together, their smiles making the mission feel cruel. The room frames them as a committee deciding someone else's fate. One man speaks confidently, expecting approval. The elder listens skeptically, calculating the report before answering. A montage of faces connects the discussion to people under consideration. The elder reaches into his robe, producing the thing that will begin the task. The three men wait around the table, tension building. A book or ledger lands on the table, making the decision official. Recruits stand in a rocky chamber facing books prepared for them. Three masked figures oversee them, clearly controlling the lesson. Two men exchange anxious looks, searching for an explanation. The crowd watches fearfully, realizing the books are not freely offered. A masked instructor faces them, demanding silence through posture alone. His blank mask removes humanity, leaving only the command's pressure. Three young men look up, curious despite the apprehension spreading through the group. The recruits murmur, but anxiety grows without answers. A calm young woman watches more carefully than the others, measuring the situation instead of panicking. Wool keeps his eyes closed, composed enough to make the surrounding fear look distant. When his eyes open, the slit pupil reminds everyone that his calm is not ordinary. Bound books wait on the ground, promising knowledge while the masked figures prepare something harsher. A fist clenches, turning the lesson from reading into a physical demand. Wool raises his own fist, following the instruction while quietly studying its purpose. The group forms up with arms raised, surrendering individual movement. Wool looks toward a worried woman, noticing that her fear is asking for guidance. He speaks steadily while she stays behind him, listening for any way to survive the rules. Her serious expression shows that his warning has reached her, even if it offers no comfort. Wool stands alone from behind, contemplating the compound instead of disappearing into its formation. Lanterns illuminate the training facility at night, making the cavern feel both occupied and impossible to escape. A blade cuts into one trainee, proving the drill has crossed from instruction into murder. Another young man stands with his sword ready, caught between following the order and fearing its cost. He breathes heavily, sweat exposing the strain behind the violent display. Afterward, he sheathes the sword, trying to hide what the training has forced him to become. Wool watches from the shadows, studying the fighter's reaction more closely than the wound. He faces someone nearby, and the tense posture suggests the next confrontation is already personal. A wild man with a manic grin steps forward, acting like the cavern belongs to his appetite for chaos. A pale-haired woman reacts with alarm, recognizing that his aggression threatens everyone nearby. Wool stands alone in ethereal light, as if the violence has sharpened an internal decision. The two women speak together, their shared concern revealing how quickly the training is dividing the recruits. One woman looks aside, thinking through her next move instead of trusting the masked instructors. Then she crosses blades with Wool, and the conversation becomes a test neither can avoid. Her assault stays aggressive, forcing Wool to answer speed with control rather than simple strength. Wool parries under pressure, his strained expression showing that this opponent is testing his limits. The woman's concern surfaces, because the fight has become more serious than she intended. The manic man watches with amusement, enjoying the danger as if it were entertainment. Wool nods, acknowledging the challenge without surrendering his composure. He now stands before the three masked overseers, making himself the center of their evaluation. A female trainee reacts in shock, realizing the fight has changed the group's understanding of Wool. The trainees walk through the tunnel, leaving the fallen behind while the spiky-haired man acts indifferent. The wider passage makes the group small as the defeated trainee disappears behind them. His body lies on the cold stone, eyes vacant beneath the feet of those who keep moving. Wool stands over him, detached enough to study the result instead of pretending the drill was fair. His sharp face gives away nothing, but his focus shows the aftermath is being recorded. The defeated trainee remains injured and unmoving, another warning written into the cavern floor. Wool places a hand over the fallen face, checking the consequence with clinical calm. His slit pupil fills the frame, turning observation into the predatory focus that keeps him alive. The same eye remains fixed and calculating, measuring the training's pattern rather than its spectacle. Wool walks forward with determination, convinced this training is his best chance to uncover its true objective. A wooden structure sits beneath a rock wall, guarded by red-cloaked figures. Wool hides behind stone, watching the guards before risking a single step forward. Their wide-eyed masks remain fixed on the entrance, making the patrol feel inhuman. Wool peeks out with narrowed eyes, measuring their positions instead of rushing the door. Dark aura gathers around him, preparing a silent approach through the guarded space. The shadow creeps over his face as Wool commits to the infiltration. He approaches one guard from behind, close enough to strike, while remaining completely unseen. Wool slips between them, dark energy hiding every movement. His face stays cold and focused. Hesitation would expose him now. He walks deeper through the empty corridor, leaving the guards behind without raising an alarm. Wool continues toward the doors, aura trailing like a shadow. He stops to scan the corridor, listening for whatever the guards were protecting. Wool opens the door and enters, turning the successful infiltration into a search. A sparse room offers little cover, so he studies every surface before moving. He lies close to the floor, inspecting something hidden where a careless visitor would never look. Wool sits with a book, searching its pages for the structure's missing explanation. His thoughtful expression shows the text is giving him information, but not comfort. A golden scroll case catches his attention, standing out as the room's real secret. He reaches for it carefully, treating the case as evidence rather than treasure. The scroll unrolls, revealing writing that demands attention. Shock hits Wool's face as the contents reveal something he was never meant to know. His slit pupil sharpens, turning surprise into a dangerous calculation. Grime and sweat cover him, while the new information crushes the room's fragile calm. Wool drops to his knees, clutching the scroll as anger replaces confusion. A sudden sound reaches his ear, and his eye widens toward the corridor. He crouches defensively, ready for the intruder. A white-masked figure approaches in dark robes, carrying the weight of an official response. The figure reaches an ornate door, its shattered patterns forming another barrier. Its featureless mask gives nothing away, making the approaching presence impossible to read. The figure raises both arms, activating or opening the massive door. Beyond it, the corridor stretches empty toward the room Wool has just searched. Books and scrolls become the focus of the conversation, confirming that knowledge is being controlled. The masked figure speaks, still revealing nothing except a serious and deliberate intent. Two red-hooded figures stand outside beneath lanterns, guarding the next stage of the operation. Identical masked figures walk together, showing that this organization moves as a system. They converse in the corridor, their masks making the exchange cold and calculated. A dark aura follows one masked figure, echoing the same oppressive force Wool has been cultivating. The pair remain close, discussing their purpose without revealing identity. One figure appears to lead, speaking while the other waits for direction. Two masked figures confront someone from behind, turning the corridor into a controlled interrogation. A close-up mask delivers a serious statement, but the hidden face keeps its meaning uncertain. Another masked speaker continues, stretching the tense exchange without offering a name. The pair stand together again, apparently agreeing on the next move. A profile view emphasizes the mask's design and the calm posture behind it. The dialogue continues, repeating the organization's habit of speaking through symbols instead of faces. Their conversation remains focused, as though the unseen listener's fate has already been decided. Two figures face a third from behind, making the meeting feel formal and threatening. They continue speaking over the unseen figure, pressing the confrontation toward a result. Someone lies on the ground inside dark energy while the masked figures demand to know how. One masked speaker announces the hell flute, making the next threat suddenly specific. The marked mask fills the frame, returning the focus to the authority behind the threat. The figure speaks again, and the corridor feels less like a meeting than a sentence being carried out. A masked figure declares that the people below belong to a true owner holding their lives in his hand. A gray-haired man raises the flute to his lips, revealing who may control the entire situation. From a rooftop, a light-haired figure watches the courtyard, positioned above everyone else. The courtyard lies quiet beneath the night, but the silence feels prepared rather than peaceful. A long-haired woman faces a man in dark robes, suspicion tightening their conversation. The man confronts her and another companion, turning suspicion into an aggressive demand. Her close-up shows concern becoming realization as the hidden danger finally reaches them. A powerful ripple tears through the air, forcing both figures upward in alarm. Shock overwhelms the woman's face before she can understand what struck the courtyard. She stands distressed while her companion struggles behind her against the unseen pressure. The force closes around her chest, stealing breath and turning fear into physical pain. She collapses, and the companion behind her begins to fall as well. Multiple people lie helpless on the ground, calling out while the attack spreads. A light-haired woman weeps and gasps beneath the invisible force. Dark shoes stop over her, making the power imbalance impossible to ignore. A long-haired man stands above her, controlling the scene with a stern expression. His close-up confirms the assault has placed him in complete control. A cracked sky hangs over the building as an unseen force strikes. Victims collapse, clutching their chests in agony. A light-haired woman gasps on the ground, terror replacing breath. A long-haired man stands over her, studying calmly. His focused eyes measure chaos instead of joining it. Masked figures appear, connecting themselves to the suffering. Wool kneels beside her, hand on her back. Realization sharpens his face as he studies her symptoms. He supports her while she fights for air. An aura gathers as Wool attempts a technique. Energy intensifies, but her condition refuses to release. Bowls of food suggest the victim swallowed the danger. A spectral snake rises behind Wool, linking deduction to power. He looks back, urgency replacing detached observation. Her face twists in pain, confirming the condition is worsening. He considers a parasite, rather than ordinary poison. He wonders what could stimulate the poison inside them. Shock crosses his face as the pieces finally connect. He stands, his decision hardening into action. Masked figures approach with deliberate menace. Wool faces them, ready to test his deduction. His eyes narrow, replacing surprise with readiness. The attack knocks Wool down before he can control the distance. The masked figures advance while he remains overwhelmed. One looms over him, turning defeat into immediate execution. A weapon rises for the finishing strike. The blade flashes downward before Wool can recover. Wool is struck, pain confirming the attacker's advantage. He lies incapacitated beneath the raised weapon. Another assailant lifts a weapon, preparing to end him. The masked figures confer, treating Wool's survival as a problem. Anonymity fills the close-up, making their decision unreadable. The blank mask stares forward, while the threat hangs silent. Wool's face contorts as poison and injury fight together. Two masked figures stand united, detached. Seen from behind, they discuss what happens next. Wool struggles for consciousness as a hand administers treatment. Two people kneel beside him, trying to help. A lone masked figure stands among them, controlling the response. A stern warning makes clear that interference will not be tolerated. Wool meditates, gathering himself after the attack. His closed eyes hold a private fight against weakness. The spectral snake rises again, turning recovery into transformation. His eyes open with reptilian intensity, proving the struggle changed him. A dark corridor echoes with footsteps approaching the survivors. The white-haired woman looks around, alert. Three people advance cautiously with torches. The woman listens to the corridor, sensing something nearby. The spiky-haired man shouts at what he has found. A masked figure watches from the shadows. The woman turns toward it, shocked by the danger. The spiky-haired man challenges the mask, making the threat louder. He steps between them, calm enough to stop the confrontation spreading. The women exchange shock as the situation escalates. Wool gives the angry man a stern warning to calm down. He stands resolute while the shouting continues behind him. The woman looks at Wool, worried about where this will lead. Wool studies the side of the corridor, considering his next move. He speaks with the woman, turning panic into a working alliance. His red eyes remain calm, calculating beyond the argument. A foreground face and the woman's alarm show the danger rising again. The white-haired woman clutches her chest, overwhelmed by fear. The brown-haired woman watches, assessing the threat. Wool speaks with an unchanged, neutral calm. The group gathers while the spiky-haired man keeps shouting. Wool stands alone as the conflict gathers around his silence. They continue through the tunnel, torches barely holding back the dark. The brown-haired woman shouts in frustration, pressure finally breaking through restraint. Wool looks aside with mild curiosity instead of matching her panic. His profile carries quiet authority as he answers. The spiky-haired man yells at him, but Wool remains unmoved. Wool's eye narrows, hinting that patience is about to become power. The others panic below him, giving the danger a comic edge. The spiky-haired man screams, turning fear into ridiculous rage. Wool looks down at the grumpy companions, still detached from their turmoil. Then Wool winks, hiding his real intentions behind sudden playfulness. The spiky-haired man grins, thrilled by the confrontation instead of frightened. Floating lanterns surround him, making his joy look beautiful and unhinged. A hand grips the torch tightly as the mood turns dangerous again. The spiky-haired man and brown-haired woman brace for confrontation. The brown-haired woman shouts, openly challenging the decision in front of them. The white-haired woman watches sternly, weighing the argument between them. Surprise softens her face, revealing an emotion she did not expect. Wool stands apart, thinking while the group's noise continues. His mouth stays neutral, giving away nothing. The companions stand together, united. Dark shadows fill the frame, signaling a supernatural turn. Wool stands in reflective darkness, tapping into an unseen power. The brown-haired woman looks afraid but determined. Wool looks aside, listening for the next development. The group advances through the corridor, torches marking their path. Wool studies the darkness, deep in thought. He turns toward the startled white-haired woman, noticing her reaction. His profile remains neutral and calculating. The brown-haired woman approaches, addressing Wool directly. Wool closes his eyes, finding stillness amid the tension. He takes the center, his gaze now commanding. Wool faces the white-haired woman, and the corridor falls emotionally quiet. Her surprised face shows his words reached somewhere unexpected. The woman looks moved, clutching her chest with a genuine smile. Wool and the light-haired woman face each other over a final warning. She insists Wool remember what she is about to reveal. She walks toward distant light, leaving the old prison behind. Wool's red eyes widen as the meaning reaches him. Light pours through cracked stone, opening an impossible path. The beam intensifies, signaling the setting is changing. A featureless masked figure stands in the light, controlling the transition. Prisoners line up before a white headbanded overseer. Sweat and anxious faces reveal how little freedom this offers. The masked figure watches, judging them without speaking. A woman raises her hand, volunteering despite the fear. The mask stays silent, forcing everyone to wait. Her expression brightens, suggesting the answer offers hope. A woven basket hangs by ropes, turning escape into another danger. The figure watches the prisoners as hope rises. The overseer stands above them, deciding their destination. A grim prediction says most will not survive the challenge. The blank mask confirms the warning. The prisoners look up, caught between hope and uncertainty. They cheer before understanding the price of leaving. The woman and others share hope while Wool listens. He looks upward, wary of the sudden good news. His red eyes search the opening for its condition. He and the woman reach the same uneasy understanding. Wool's face hardens, treating the offer as another test. The basket returns with one key word: detoxified. A tall, light-haired figure watches behind them. They walk toward the next objective, focused rather than relaxed. The woman looks back, their realization unfinished. Wool faces forward, ready for what waits beyond the light. Braided ropes hang vertically, revealing the dangerous descent. The group gathers around the basket as the spiky-haired man peers inside. The woman mentions the last ones, signaling selection is nearly complete. The thick rope vibrates. The basket begins moving. It descends with Wool and the others inside. The basket passes a traditional roof, revealing the structure below. It hangs tiny in a cavernous space, isolated and exposed. Wool and the woman scout the area below. The spiky-haired man shouts while Wool studies the distance. Wool's eyes widen at something unexpected below. Pain grips his chest, interrupting the descent. He grips his arm, trying to contain the reaction. Blindfolded and crying out, Wool loses sight of everything. The woman and another companion stare in alarm. Wool shouts again as the spiky-haired man reacts. He shields his face from the unseen assault. The force continues, refusing to release him. A bright flash engulfs the basket. The winch turns, pulling the basket toward the ground. The basket reaches the ground, ropes slack around its passengers. Boots approach, announcing whoever controls this destination. The group huddles inside and looks upward. A tall figure stands over the basket, haloed by authority. Wool raises his arms, still blindfolded and suffering. A thin bearded man looks down with calculating eyes. A bright mountain landscape replaces the cavern. The overseer watches with serious, mocking interest. He stands before the kneeling group, focused on Wool. Wool touches the blindfold, calm despite the journey. A light brown-haired leader looks down from the sky. His gold-trimmed robe signals authority. Two masked guards bow behind him. Guards lead Wool from the basket. Even blindfolded, he remains composed. The leader stands behind kneeling Wool, authority directly overhead. Horse-drawn carts move through a narrow mountain pass. More carts follow, showing a larger transfer. Night falls over a vine-covered wall. The leader looks aside, considering the next stage. He stands beneath leaves, calm under observation. He looks from a window while another figure watches. The group gathers in a room, exchanging tense words. Wool speaks in profile, unreadable as others react. The spiky-haired man laughs at Wool's calm. Wool listens without changing expression. He turns toward the window, making the argument seem smaller. The companions continue measuring one another. The spiky-haired man speaks intensely, agitation returning. A stone well rests in the moonlit courtyard. Water splashes upward, breaking the stillness. Droplets settle on leaves, restoring brief calm. Wool lies on the grass, hands behind his head. He watches the stars peacefully, his eyes close, letting silence replace argument. The courtyard shows Wool resting near the building. The characters walk quietly through the courtyard. Branches frame the night sky above them. He sits beneath the trees, thoughtful. A dandelion rises against the bright sky. Two light-haired youths look down with gentle wonder. One youth cries, exposing buried vulnerability. Both kneel and weep while Wool watches. Wool's red eyes observe without interrupting. Leaves scatter, tearing the peaceful moment apart. A dark shoe crushes the dandelion. The youths look up in shock. Two daggers lie in the grass, promising violence. A masked figure stands over Wool, assigning the weapons. Wool sits ready, staring at the daggers. Sunlight filters through the canopy before the next cruelty arrives. Wool sits beneath the trees, red eyes watching quietly. Two disciples cry over a dandelion while Wool watches. A black shoe crushes the flower without hesitation. The disciples look up, learning tenderness is unprotected here. Two sheathed swords lie in the grass, awaiting violence. A masked figure tells Wool he will use them soon. Wool looks up, converting the threat into a decision. The swords remain like an unsigned contract. A traditional building rises under clear daylight. Lanterns hang over a formal room where favors are negotiated. A spiky-haired man drinks tea across from an older, scarred man. He pours confidently, smiling as if he owns the conversation. The older man studies his cup, burdened by the favor. He admits uncertainty about repaying his debts. Tea passes between them, disguising danger as politeness. The older man listens, still searching for escape. The spiky-haired man holds his cup with a smug smile. The older man sips, considering the cost. The spiky-haired man sets his cup down decisively. The older man looks down, resigned. The spiky-haired man's profile turns cold as favor becomes obligation. He says he knows what is expected. His stare pins the older man in place. Sweat appears as the pressure becomes personal. The spiky-haired man answers with a mocking smile. A red aura spreads around the building. He sits like a king as the aura intensifies. The older man realizes repayment is no longer ordinary. A hand grips a serrated blade. Talk is over. Wool stands ready with his own blade. The spiky-haired man whispers behind him. Wool looks back through the barred corridor. The spiky-haired man gestures, trying to provoke him. He asks whether Wool is trembling. Wool remains stoic. The spiky-haired man demands a mission to kill. Wool narrows his eyes, studying the danger. The group walks toward a bright barred gate. Several figures look upward before it opens. Wool and the spiky-haired man stand ready. A subtle smile promises someone knows the ending. Blue aura rises around Wool's blade. Dark mountains isolate the mission route. A night forest hides an attack force. A masked figure moves through the trees. Several figures leap with coordinated speed. A pale mask flashes during the movement. Glowing eyes watch from the branches. More figures leap, closing around their target. One lands in dust beneath the cliff. The others land nearby, formation intact. Ribbons trail from the turning mask. Dark energy coils around the profile. The masked figure stands beneath cloudy sky. Jagged rocks narrow every escape route. A traditional building glows in the night. Someone meditates inside a fiery aura. Glowing-eyed figures move with fierce purpose. Wool faces forward, aura ready for violence. Pink lotuses bloom beneath blue sky, opening a quieter thread. A long-haired woman stands among blue flowers. She turns calmly, showing no fear. Her hand reaches toward a flower. The flower disintegrates into dark particles. She watches the particles drift, the garden contaminated. The woman glances back, sensing someone approach. An elderly woman in feathers enters with a staff. Her stern face makes the garden a courtroom. The women face each other, serenity replaced by tension. The elder speaks with cold authority. The younger woman calls the interruption inconvenient. Anger twists the elder's face. She reminds the younger woman who raised her from the streets. The elder turns history into a weapon. The younger woman listens without yielding. The elder invokes a 7-year plan. She speaks with grim determination. The younger woman closes her eyes, unreadable. Her eyes in the sky frame private calculation. A younger woman rushes in, calling for her master. She stops, concerned by the confrontation. The newcomer waits respectfully. All three women share the tense conversation. The elder strikes her staff, releasing energy. The younger woman stands unchanged afterward. The elder looms over her, claiming dominance. They exchange a silent, unresolved look. The younger woman looks skyward as wind catches her hair. The newcomer and elder continue talking. The elder's profile remains fixed on the plan. A spiky-haired silhouette appears against fire. The elder speaks beside a golden pillar. Alone in the forest, she holds her staff. The mountains establish the conflict's remoteness. A flower-lined forest path hides movement. Cracked earth hints at harshness beneath beauty. A hooded figure slips through blue-lit darkness. The masked face remains still, eyes closed. The hooded figure leaps with supernatural speed. Glowing eyes lock onto the target. Night deepens, hiding the final approach. The wooded darkness thickens around the threat. Rocky spires blur as the attack arrives. Red eyes burn through the hood. A blade drops with lethal speed. The hooded figure is struck, blood spraying. The blade pierces deeper, replacing focus with shock. The wounded figure remains standing, resolved. A masked assassin hangs from a bloodied spear. Blood spills as he grips the weapon through his chest. The spear refuses to move. A red glow marks his shock before death. Mountains and birds contrast with the violence below. A muscular spearman crouches with his weapon ready. His hand tightens around the shaft. He thrusts upward, lifting a masked attacker from the ground. The assassin's face registers pain. The spearman swings through, throwing the assassin down. His toothy grin shows battle is where he belongs. Yellow-robed men surround him, turning battle into a challenge. A masked observer studies the spearman, waiting for an opening. More assassins gather in shadow, coordinating. A yellow-robed warrior raises his spear toward an opponent. He looks upward, sensing danger. His spear strikes the ground, cracking the earth beneath him. Sweat reveals the pressure. Energy and debris gather around him. Masked assassins leap around the yellow-robed group. The warriors look up, fear entering their formation. They charge anyway, spears leveled. The spearman's face hardens as battle turns personal. He raises his arm, muscles tightening. Then he dashes with impossible speed. His spear strikes an assassin, spraying blood. The victim flies upward beneath the impact. The spearman leaps after him, choosing another target. His weapon pierces another assassin. He lands ready for the next wave. A hooded attacker takes a brutal counterstrike. The spearman prepares again before the formation recovers. He drives through another assassin with overwhelming force. The victim crashes onto the path. The spearman delivers the final blow. His weapon cuts a shockwave through the attackers. One assassin escapes with blue aura. Blue light glows from the hooded figure's eyes. A single eye fixes on the spearman with lethal focus. The assassins clash with him together. He deflects an attack, weapons ringing. His eyes narrow for the counter. The spearman leaps, energy trailing behind the strike. A flash erupts where their attacks meet. Yellow-clad warriors approach cautiously. They hesitate, intimidated by the spearman's presence. He appears behind one of them without warning. The warriors panic as survival disappears. A spear flies across the forest toward its target. The spearman watches calmly, already certain of the trajectory. The spear hits the ground and blasts open a crater. A small cut marks the spearman's neck, proving he was not untouched. He smiles wider, enjoying even the injury. A triumphant roar rolls through the forest. A hooded figure watches from the shadows, measuring the massacre. The spearman moves through the trees after the remaining enemies. He looks back, daring anyone else to approach. Then he walks away, leaving the bodies behind. A fallen warrior lies in a trail of blood. The spearman stands over a hooded survivor struggling on the ground. The injured hooded figure leans against a wall, exhausted and shocked. A yellow-robed warrior stands over the defeated opponent. A boot crushes the earth, displaying the power behind the pursuit. The hooded figure runs through dense forest toward the light. They sprint harder, moving under obvious pressure. The figure looks back, checking whether the hunt has caught up. The spearman grins, enjoying the chase as much as the fight. The hooded figure keeps running. A stylized masked figure appears between two others, organizing the pursuit. Arrows rain down with a message. Evidence will be destroyed. The hooded group is ambushed by the volley. One figure leaps as arrows cut past. An arrow strikes, spraying blood from the hooded body. The wounded figure falls into dirt. They reach their knees, clutching the arrow in the chest. Pain fills the close-up around the arrows. Their eyes focus despite injury. The sky opens above the ambush, marking a sudden realization. A cliff overlooks the water, offering escape at a terrible cost. Blood pools below, recording what the ambush has already taken. An archer in yellow robes draws again from above. The hooded figure leaps toward him with blades ready. Steel clashes as the attack reaches the archer. The hooded fighter stands victorious over the fallen bowman. In a clearing, the survivor faces the horizon, weary but alert. They look back with pain and determination still intact. The hooded figure jumps from the cliff toward the water. Marks on the ground preserve a trail after the escape. Exhausted, the figure stands in the forest, searching for the next move. They walk away, disappearing into dense trees. A blood-splattered rock proves the struggle continued beyond sight. Binhwa kneels beside it, red eyes assessing the aftermath. He studies the ground, reconstructing the trail left by his opponent. Binhwa turns toward a distant light deep in the forest. His slit pupil fixes on the target with predatory focus. A massive spider web stretches between cliffs, turning the forest into another trap. A monk and yellow-robed warriors search the woods cautiously. Binhwa gathers blue aura, rigid and ready to strike. He slashes horizontally as a white-haired opponent falls above him. Binhwa's face strains through the high-stakes clash. The white-haired woman stands shocked, blood across her face. Binhwa lies below her, staring up at the blade. She stands over him calmly, bloodied and unsettling after the encounter. Blue sky hangs over the forest, peaceful above the violence waiting below. Binhwa lies on the ground, red eyes fixed with determination. The white-haired woman stands bloodied, smiling with unsettling calm. She moves with fluid grace, blade ready despite the blood. Binhwa tackles her down, pinning the fight to the forest floor. He holds her close, studying the injury and her remaining strength. Binhwa looks up, hardening as he assesses the aftermath. He tells her most of the others are dead. A memory shows a yellow-clad fighter struck down in the forest. A brown-haired woman fights several yellow attackers, refusing to yield. The white-haired woman appears through tears, then lies still and pale. Binhwa carries her through the forest, somber and protective. He kneels beside her, reaching out with hesitation. His intense gaze measures her condition. Her bloodied face looks up, pale eyes still alert. Binhwa's eye narrows, focus replacing uncertainty. Her ethereal eyes hold his attention in return. He kneels over her as the forest grows quiet. She lies with closed eyes, appearing unconscious beneath the blood. Her profile remains peaceful despite the injuries. Binhwa looks down, expression unreadable. The forest floor absorbs the light, making the silence feel heavy. Binhwa stands over her as she sits among the trees. He kneels again, speaking while she listens. Her profile stays calm, accepting the conversation without fear. They sit together after the battle, resting in the forest. Binhwa speaks seriously, mouth the only visible sign of motion. He stands over her, still measuring what happens next. A dark interior shows another figure kneeling before a shadowed presence. Images of Binhwa fighting and a golden object connect the aftermath to a larger plan. Binhwa kneels beside the unconscious woman, the battle's quiet returning. His narrowed eyes reveal calculation rather than rest. Her bloodied face remains peaceful against the surrounding darkness. Binhwa leans closer, checking whether she is truly unconscious. His eyes widen as a new realization takes shape. The woman begins opening her eyes, calm despite the wounds. She leans against Binhwa as recovery replaces collapse. Her profile remains composed, blood marking her neck and robes. Binhwa's hands move with an ethereal precision, beginning a technique. The woman stands alone, steady despite the blood. Binhwa turns away inside a dark aura, preparing for what follows. Red light fills his eyes as he speaks with intensity. A traditional building sits between cliffs, holding the next threat. Inside, a short-haired man and masked figure wait in a pillared hall. The man holds an envelope while discussing who survived. The envelope reads, VOID, and its contents were never needed. The man and mask stand together, weighing the failed outcome. The masked figure remains silent, sharp design hiding every reaction. The man studies the envelope with growing frustration. They continue talking in the hallway, keeping the message between them. They walk away together, carrying the envelope and its unanswered purpose. The man smirks, suggesting they should not be first to act. A glow gathers around the envelope, changing the message itself. Alarm crosses the man's face as he realizes the envelope was tampered with. Someone falls through the hall while both observers watch. The wider hall fills with people and sudden commotion. An older gray-haired man shouts with a sword raised. A bearded man lifts prayer beads, agitation spreading through the crowd. Someone lies on the floor as the observers remain above. The man grins, welcoming the chaos instead of fearing it. He addresses the crowd with the masked figure beside him. Hand on his sword, he claims they are aiming for him. Dark red energy transforms his eyes and veins. He raises the sword, red aura bending the hallway around it. His glowing eyes promise an attack without restraint. He lunges, trailing a massive red arc. 3 monks brace with beads and staffs. Red silhouettes gather in darkness, representing lethal intent. The sword releases a circular wave meant to clear the hall. He stands in the aftermath, coldly triumphant. Monks lie across the devastated hallway while the red blade remains ready. A golden hand moves with perfect speed, blocking the attack. The attacker's triumph turns to shock. A counter shock wave throws force back through the hall. He swings desperately, red and gold energy colliding. The clash erupts into light and debris. The attacker struggles inside the shockwave, barely standing. He is thrown back, blood spilling from his mouth. His angry face remains dangerous despite the injury. A calm figure appears inside a golden aura, changing the room's balance. The figure's stoic face remains untouched by the chaos. The attacker looks up, fear replacing confidence. He is forced to look upward, posture suddenly submissive. The golden figure warns him to say nothing more. A dark spectral presence rises behind him, multiplying the threat. The golden figure stands in a lotus courtyard, while the attacker looks defeated. He stands alone with sword extended, ready but visibly uncertain. The golden figure grips the weapon, cold and prepared. Golden arcs flash as the counterattack begins. The man is struck, blood spraying through the hallway. A light-haired attacker descends with a feral grin. Dark fabric and white energy blur through the continuation of the strike. The light-haired attacker dives with red eyes while the dark-haired warrior parries with a staff. Their split expressions show a manic predator facing a disciplined defender. Red and white energy collide mid-air, exploding across the battlefield. The dark-haired warrior sweats, holding concentration under the pressure. The light-haired man unleashes another red wave, determined to finish the fight. The warrior reacts to the incoming force, shocked but ready. The attacker swings again, trailing red energy toward him. A white vortex rises behind the warrior as his defense takes shape. The attacker pants through blood and exhaustion, but keeps advancing. Ghostly hands reach from the red-lit floor around his drawn sword. The warrior's vortex tears through the room, forcing the attacker backward. A red slash cuts through the air with lethal precision. The attacker roars, rage replacing whatever control remained. The vortex catches him and drives him away from the warrior. He twists through rapid movements, trying to evade the pressure. His sword strikes the ground, releasing a small burst of energy. He stumbles, battered by the vortex's continuing force. He looks up in shock as the warrior prepares another attack. Terror replaces the grin when he realizes the next strike is unavoidable. The vortex descends in a column of white light. It throws the light-haired man backward, blood leaving his mouth. The dark-haired warrior lands calmly beside the distant crater. His cold expression dismisses the threat rather than celebrating victory. 2 masked figures watch from the shadows, silent witnesses to the defeat. 2 bald monks approach the crater with staffs ready. The attacker lies broken inside the crater, shock replacing confidence. The dark-haired warrior walks away while an elderly staff wielder watches. He pauses to study his hands, reflecting on the battle. The elder stands with 2 women, all watching the aftermath seriously. The structured hall frames the elder, women, and a long-haired man around the defeated attacker. The light-haired man spits blood, rage surviving the damage. He lies broken in the crater, while the women look down without pity. His red eyes burn as his fury becomes completely unhinged. A dark-haired woman manifests a purple blade among floating feathers. The attacker screams, still trying to turn pain into another assault. His red eyes burn as the fury refuses to end. The elder strikes down with her staff, purple energy ending the attempt. She stands calmly afterward, speaking as though the result was obvious. A thin blade suddenly pierces a man's chest, ending the conflict's illusion of safety. He clutches the wound and coughs blood, shock arriving too late. The injured man drops to his knees, defiant despite the pain. Sweat beads across his face as the wound overwhelms him. A dark-haired woman stands before him with serene authority. Her composed face remains detached from the violence beneath her. She stands over the slumped man, still controlling the room. The woman turns slightly, watching the situation without emotion. The injured man looks up desperately, body failing beneath him. He collapses fully, leaving the sword discarded on the floor. The woman's profile stays focused as she considers the outcome. She stands between the long-haired man and the elder, while the victim lies behind them. Holding a sword, she speaks to the long-haired man with controlled seriousness. 2 bald monks hold another man down, turning the hall into a controlled chamber. The captive kneels between them, looking up through the struggle. The elder stands over him, staff and authority aligned. His face twists with frustration and defiance. The elder continues addressing him while a monk watches behind. The captive answers with a mocking smile despite the danger. Purple light fills the elder's eyes as amusement becomes menace. Dark energy grips the captive's head, making the technique visibly personal. Pressure crushes him as the elder's feathers and purple aura overwhelm the room. The elder looks down dismissively, mocking the captive's assumption that he would be dead. Her close-up delivers a final command with cold authority. A damaged building smokes between cliffs, shifting the story toward another mission. A young, dark-haired woman faces the elder, distressed by the order. She closes her eyes, processing obedience as a grim necessity. The elder looks over her shoulder, demanding that she act. The younger woman steadies herself, serious and ready. A dense forest waits at night, hiding the next movement. An icy projectile pierces a branch, proving the forest is already hostile. A dark figure crouches on the branch, poised to strike or escape. Guards patrol a torchlit courtyard while an unseen watcher studies them. The mysterious figure crouches above, tracking the patrol with predatory focus. A slit red eye fills the frame, revealing supernatural awareness. The figure keeps watching, ready to infiltrate the guarded compound. The red eye fixes forward as the final decision is made.